How does a girl who grew up poor, rejected, and deeply insecure become one of the most powerful and recognizable entertainers on the planet, still relevant after 7 decades in the spotlight? This isn't just a story about Cher. It's a story about what it really takes to survive fame, loss, betrayal, and still rise. Again and again. Sherilyn Sarkeesian was born in El Centro, California in 1946. Her mother, Georgia Holt, was a part-time model and actress who often struggled to make ends meet. Cher's father, an Armenian-American truck driver, abandoned the family when she was just a baby. That was only the beginning of a turbulent childhood. Her mother remarried multiple times, leading to a childhood filled with instability, poverty, and displacement. At one point, Cher was even placed in an orphanage because her mother couldn't afford to care for her. She described herself as shy and insecure, and often felt out of place. Dyslexia made school difficult, and she frequently felt overlooked. But even as a child, she was drawn to glamour and performance. She didn't just want to be famous. She needed to prove something to the world, and maybe to herself. Cher dropped out of high school at 16 and moved to Los Angeles. She wasn't sure how, but she was determined to break into showbiz. It was in LA that she met Salvatore "Sonny" Bono, a man who would become her creative partner, husband, and for a time, her entire world. Sonny believed in her voice, a deep contralto tone that didn't fit the pop female archetype of the 1960s. But with Sonny's encouragement and producing skills, the two created "I Got You, Babe," a smash hit that catapulted them into stardom in 1965. They became America's favorite duo, the quirky, charming oddballs who went from struggling artists to hosting their own television show. But while the public saw the fun-loving Sonny and Cher, behind the scenes, things were far from perfect. By the late 1960s, Sonny and Cher weren't just entertainers, they were cultural icons. Their fashion set trends. Their variety shows pulled in millions of viewers. Teenagers copied their style. Adults debated their politics. But behind the peace signs and playful banter, Cher's world was becoming smaller by the day. While their partnership looked equal on stage, behind the curtain, Sonny held most of the power. Creatively, financially, and emotionally. He managed their contracts, controlled their money, and made all the key decisions. And Cher, still incredibly young, often felt like a passenger in her own life. She later admitted that she signed contracts without reading them, because Sonny told her to. He believed he was protecting them, building a brand that needed tight control. But in doing so, he effectively made Cher an employee in her own career. Their marriage became more business than love. She was constantly working, filming shows during the week, performing on weekends, doing press in between. At times, she didn't know where her personal life ended and the public persona began. The fame was thrilling, but exhausting. And slowly, it began to crack her open. Behind her glamorous smile was a woman becoming painfully aware that she was disappearing, both as an artist and as a person. Cher described that period as living in a golden cage. She had everything she thought she wanted: money, success, admiration, but no real control over her choices. Sonny, once her champion, had become her gatekeeper. The emotional strain eventually became unbearable. She found herself questioning her own instincts, afraid to speak up, worried that pushing back would shatter everything they'd built. But the bigger fear? Losing herself entirely. The breaking point came quietly, but definitively. In 1974, after nearly a decade of partnership, Cher walked away. From the marriage, from the duo, from the empire they built together. And when she did, she realized something terrifying. She had nothing. No rights to their music. No ownership of their business. No legal claim to the wealth they'd amassed together. Sonny had structured it all under his name. She had to start over, at 27. But this wasn't a fall. It was a beginning. The messy, painful start of Cher reclaiming her identity, her voice, and her destiny. When most artists hit their peak, they ride the wave until it fizzles. Cher built an entirely new ocean. By the late 1970s, the world had largely moved on from the Sonny and Cher era, and many assumed Cher's career would fade with it. But instead of clinging to her past image, she dismantled it completely. She dyed her hair jet black, shed the hippie aesthetic, and embraced an edgier persona. Sultry, unapologetic, and ready to challenge the industry's expectations of women, especially those over 30. She didn't just switch genres, she flipped industries. Her pivot to acting wasn't a vanity project. It was a calculated risk. And when she stepped onto the screen in Silkwood and Mask, critics didn't know what to make of her. How could a pop singer with flashy costumes deliver performances that raw, that layered, that human? But she did. Over and over again. And in 1988, when she held up her Oscar for Moonstruck, it wasn't just a win for Cher. It was a statement. Reinvention isn't reinvention if it doesn't scare you. But reinvention, for Cher, wasn't always about personal ambition. It was often about survival. She faced constant resistance from the entertainment establishment, who couldn't figure out where to place her. Too bold for Hollywood, too experimental for pop, too old for the charts, they said. So, she went where few dared to go, the future. In 1998, she released Believe, a dance anthem that would not only top charts worldwide, but revolutionize the sound of pop music with its now famous auto-tune effect. At 52, Cher wasn't following trends. She was inventing them. And while most artists dread aging in an industry obsessed with youth, Cher embraced it by blowing past its limits. Her stage performances became even more extravagant, her fashion even more fearless. She leaned into her legacy while refusing to let it define her, a paradox few celebrities ever master. Reinvention, for Cher, wasn't about pretending to be someone else. It was about finally becoming more of who she really was, layer by layer, version after version. Each evolution wasn't a mask, it was a reveal. Cher has worn many crowns: pop queen, Oscar winner, fashion icon, but the most personal and complicated one? Mother. Her love life, like her career, was never conventional. After her marriage to Sonny Bono ended, Cher's romantic relationships often made headlines. From music legends like Gregg Allman to Hollywood heartthrobs like Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise, she was drawn to men who were as bold and complicated as she was. But behind the headlines and tabloid noise, her most enduring and transformative relationship was the one she had with her children. Cher had her first child, Chastity Bono, with Sonny in 1969. Chastity would later come out as transgender and transition to Chaz Bono, a process that took place under the relentless eye of the public. For Cher, it was an emotional journey that challenged her in ways fame never could. At first, she struggled. She admitted she didn't understand. She was confused, hurt, and even scared. Not for herself, but for Chaz. The world, after all, isn't always kind to those who live outside the lines. But unlike many, Cher didn't cling to her confusion. She learned. She asked questions. She listened. She grew. And that's what made her motherhood so powerful. It wasn't perfect. It was real. She publicly embraced Chaz, not just as a son, but as a courageous human being who taught her the true meaning of identity, love, and acceptance. Through this, Cher evolved. From a mother learning to understand, to an advocate fighting for the rights of others. Not because it was trending, but because it was personal. Her second son, Elijah Blue Allman, from her marriage to rocker Gregg Allman, also faced his own challenges. Elijah spoke openly about his struggles with addiction, strained family dynamics, and a complicated relationship with fame. And while their relationship has been rocky over the years, Cher never distanced herself from the pain. She stood in it, faced it, tried to heal it. Motherhood, for Cher, was never a scripted fairy tale. It was an ever-evolving dance, one that demanded honesty, flexibility, and unshakable love, even when the rhythm fell out of step. And through every storm, one truth remained. Cher never stopped showing up. Even while touring, filming, or performing to sold-out arenas, her identity as a mother stayed central to who she was. Fame came and went. Lovers passed through. But her love for her children, messy, raw, and fierce, remained the one constant in a life defined by change. Cher's legacy as a mother is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about doing the hard emotional work, the kind that doesn't win awards but quietly saves lives. Even now, as Cher approaches her 80th year, she shows no signs of slowing down. She continues to release music, tour the world, and even dabble in skincare and fashion lines. She's amassed a fortune of over $360 million. But ask her what she's most proud of, and it's not the money or the trophies. It's surviving, thriving, raising children, advocating for others, rising from loss, over and over again. She's faced ageism, sexism, financial ruin, and personal heartbreak. And she turned every one of those obstacles into a reason to keep going. Cher's story is not about perfection. It's about perseverance. It's a reminder that behind every glossy magazine cover is a human being who fought battles no one saw. That fame doesn't protect you from loss. And that true wealth isn't in dollars. It's in resilience. So if you've ever felt too old, too late, too far behind, or too broken, remember Cher. She built an empire from the ashes of abandonment. She defied every label the industry gave her. And she proved, again and again, that the power to reinvent yourself, to start over, never expires. If Cher can rise, so can you. If this story inspired you, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and drop a comment sharing your favorite Cher moment, or how her journey connects with yours. And check out the description for more powerful stories that prove it's never too late to begin again. Thanks for watching. Stay strong, stay inspired, and keep rising.